Hey everyone, welcome to Taking the Pulse, a healthcare and life sciences video podcast. I am Heather Hoops Matthews here in the studio today with Maynard Nexsen healthcare attorney Matthew Roberts. Matthew, good to be with you.
Good to see you.
And I am excited today that we are welcoming back one of our very first guests when we launched this in 2020.
That's right.
Joining us today is Dr. Gerry Harmon. He is a decorated South Carolina physician who, at the time of joining us in 2020, was president-elect of the American Medical Association. And in addition to his work as a family physician and at that time, vice president of medical affairs at Tidelands Health, he was also taking on now this new role as Interim Dean for the University of South Carolina School of Medicine. Dr. Harmon, thank you for joining us today.
Oh, thank you. It's really an honor to be a veteran returnee, too. So thank you for being back. It means both of us must have had something that synergized on the first meeting 3 or 4 years ago. Thank you.
Well, we love to claim any success that's associated with you, that's for sure. You were, again, at that time, getting ready to take on that role. It's a national role, president of the American Medical Association. And it's clear you have a knack for leadership in taking on big projects. Can you update us and tell us how your tenure was in that role before we begin speaking about your new role?
Well, thanks. I think, and you're very kind to say I have a knack, but I think my knack is for not saying no. And so that's really, that's a knack, but it's also a gift that you're able to be worthy and to be able to serve in many ways, or felt to be worthy. So that's, if any, a lot of folks have that knack, and I respect everybody. So it's good. Y'all have a knack for doing healthcare related podcasts. And so kudos to you too. The role of the AMA president was not a regulatory role and not even a training role, but it was a teaching role, an educational role for the president-elect, the president, and the immediate past president, a 3-year term, as it were. I got involved at the highest levels of healthcare direction, policy development, education. Remember, everybody who can forget, that was the COVID years. So I did a lot of video podcast, a lot of the interactions. I did podcast out of the DC area. I did national public radio broadcast, National Press Club, things like that. And I found myself having a bully pulpit talking about healthcare knowledge, healthcare direction, policy, and also facing not only the pandemic from the virus, but a pandemic of distrust where people are no longer quite as confident in sometimes the public health directions they get, maybe the public health department, and even surprisingly to the advice sometimes of their trusted physician. So it was a learning curve for me as well as an experience curve. I think we came out on a better end of it. We now have a recognition that we have to take a public health approach, not just an acute care approach to healthcare. And that's one of the things I'm excited about in my new role as Dean of the University of South Carolina, Columbia School of Medicine.
Well, mentioning that, on August 1st, you took over as Interim Dean, and as a proud USC alumni and a supporter of the university, can you talk a little bit about what being able to serve in this position means to you and what your goals are for this role?
Matthew, thank you. My military perspective, and I didn't mention that, but I am a retired military leader also. First thing I've looked at when I was approached to this opportunity is, what are the opportunities? What's the mission of our University of South Carolina School of Medicine? And it's a really neat mission. All right, we have see if I can tell you my mission statement. We prepare physicians in training. We serve our people of South Carolina and beyond through exemplary medical health, education, transformative research, and compassionate patient care. And you think about that, I mean, it's South Carolina and beyond. It's almost like it to infinity, Buzz Lightyear. But it really is, and beyond to me is not just in the center of South Carolina, it's the entire state and our region. So healthcare is intertwined in our very civilization. So to be able to do that first at the national level when we're talking about healthcare policy and education, and now hands-on frontline training of one of our most precious resources, physicians and allied health professionals in the health professions, that's an exciting time for me. So yes, I was pretty quickly in the affirmative when I was given that chance.
Go into some topical healthcare topics. We know in the country there is a shortage of physicians, both geographically and also in many specialties. What will the school do to address the shortage? And would you increase class size? Would there be other things that you might do?
Well, we have data that shows well-researched data from various studies that we might be short of 135 to 175,000 physicians in the next decade, which is not surprising. We have an aging complexity of healthcare burdens and aging of our population among the citizens, not only of South Carolina, but among the United States. The data shows that probably 42%, almost half of the patients we're going to be serving, the population, will be 65 or older. And that, by definition, means they're, in the old definition, they're elderly. But of course, we know elderly is not really a calendar event, it's more a physiologic event anymore. But as we age, we have a more increasing burden and a complexity of the disease process. Well, one of the things I've learned as a family physician of 4 decades is people develop a disease or a pathology about once every 10 years. So you get a disease or a symptom or some burden every decade. If you're 65, you probably carry 5 comorbidities, chronic diseases, high blood pressure, high cholesterol, perhaps diabetes or pre-diabetes, lung disease, whatever, arthritis, musculoskeletal. And if you think about it, that's kind of a good barometer. The average patient may do that. The healthy, blessed patient only has a handful, and those that have less good luck have more complexities. But as we age, we're going to need more and more doctors. So that number of 135 to 175,000 is not only a crisis in the future, it's a shortage of physicians now, today. And to answer your question, I'm not sure the answer entirely lies with producing more medical students and our opening more medical schools, because the limiting factor right now, and physicians and physician educators know this, and to some degree, the public and the legislators who control these things are starting to recognize it. It's what's called graduate medical education. When we graduate a physician with a doctoral degree, we then have a graduate of a medical school. It takes another 3 to 8 years postgraduate medical education of training to learn the particular discipline, whether it's an internal medicine doctor, a lung doctor, a heart doctor, a family medicine physician, a pediatrician, surgical specialist. All those are additive in addition to the medical degree of doctor. So the limiting factor now is that of graduate medical education, residents and fellows. South Carolina graduates among the 4 degree producing schools in its state about 550 medical graduates, but it only has populations of about 450 of graduate medical education opportunities. So we export physicians in training beyond our borders.
Hmm. Well, that leads to the next question, that the University of South Carolina School of Medicine has become very effective at training physicians for service in rural areas. Can you talk a little bit about that and how that came to pass?
Well, we do. That's kind of the original charter 40 years ago in 1977 when the school was founded, graduated its first class 8 years later, or 4 years later in 81. We're the University of South Carolina campus in Columbia and even in Greenville, which is the other University of South Carolina School of Medicine campus, we're among the top 5 and to 10 nationally every year for the last 3 years, and graduates of our medical schools staying within rural areas and serving rural areas. So we're real proud of that statistics. We graduate, and our current medical student class, the class of 19, or let's say 2027 or so, 2026, 2027, is 75% South Carolina residents to start with. And the other 25% out of state have some serious connection with the state. We tend to not even interview them if they don't have some serious connection. And by that, I mean a family member having gone to another location or school within the state, or having and I mean a close family member, not a third cousin twice removed,
Right.
not having, vacation in Pawleys or Beaufort or something, but really having a connection here. So we really work really hard at serving our population and fulfilling our state mission. And we do a real good job at taking these graduates then and serving underserved areas, and even, thank goodness, choosing some primary care disciplines which you really need to put into our rural areas.
Right.
Dr. Harmon, the University of South Carolina School of Medicine here in Columbia is getting ready to move to the Bull Street Development Project, which is, I don't know, a mile and change, but it's a new development project in the city. And as Matthew and I have heard before, it has the potential for transformational impact for the school, also for the development project. Could you share a little bit about those plans?
Well, I'm excited about that. That's not another goal that it's in my future, is to make sure we get that accomplished. The timeline is still in the future. We have had substantial plans and meetings. I've been to several of them now in the month that I've been on duty there. And in my first month, I've learned a lot about it. It's a health sciences center in the Bull Street development area. It's extremely well planned out. There's a multidisciplinary approach. It's a health sciences center, not just a medical school, although that would be, got to talk. I'm talking to the dean, so you're talking to somebody who thinks that's a crown jewel, having a medical school there. That's my, functional perspective.
Yes.
As well it should be.
And it's supposed to be,
Yes, right.
It's a multidisciplinary approach. We're going to have health sciences here. We're going to have the life sciences. We're going to have biomedical engineering. We're going to have research. We're going to have education, even some treatment going on there. And it's right on the campus, right adjacent to Prisma Hospital, Midland. So, I mean, it's a perfect setting for future physicians and clinicians in training. We'll do research. We'll have a vivarium, which is the animal research lab, which is incredibly highly developed and high technology. And we're hoping to have it operational within the next 4 years.
Right. And as you mentioned, life sciences is an important industry within the state. It's the fastest growing industry in the state of South Carolina. But one of the new buildings at the School of Medicine campus on Bull Street is a life sciences building, and it's dedicated for that. Can you talk about the importance of life sciences to this new project and how it works with the medical school?
Well, life sciences is a broad description. It's kind of like healthcare.
Right.
I would tell you, when we talk about life sciences, we talk about a self-awareness, an engagement of the patient, an ability to improve health, not just to handle disease, but to prevent disease. So if we can get that mantra and that dialogue going more actively and get it supported across broad levels, we'll be getting a better handle on healthcare, education, and delivery of healthcare and management of the chronic disease burden. So all of it is interwoven. When I talk about the health sciences and the life sciences center there, we're talking about more disciplines than just medicine. I'm talking about nursing. I'm talking about engineering. If you think about behavioral science, neuroscience, all these things, laboratory science, and even to your point, how we structure our lives. So it's a nutritional concerns. All of that is wrapped into one life sciences operation, in addition to the more highly technical disciplines such as surgery, augmented intelligence or AI, robotic surgery. We have a simulation lab that we're planning. So it's a very overarching multidisciplinary approach to life sciences and health sciences.
And the ability to do research there on site and then work with the private industry is also a huge opportunity as well for the university and for the city, to be honest. Very excited about that.
It is.
One other thing about the new potential move, and the new project there is you're going to have as I understand, it's a brain institute that will focus on Alzheimer's and dementia, which, we hear more and more and more about, and really target rural areas. Could you talk to us a little bit about that? How will that work? What is the why behind it?
Well, it's interesting, and we are going to have a Center for Brain Health. It is, I think, what that's going to be our label. And we're having organizational meetings now because it crosses multiple disciplines. You think, well, it's just a brain health. The way it's pretty focused. Well, it is, but it's involving touch points in the communities, in the rural areas. And we'd like to have what we are thinking about. And again, this is still conceptual now, but we're laying down the architecture for a definitive structure and operational plan going forward. We're working really hard with our clinical partner at Prisma Health as the center, as a hub, but the spokes are going to be out in the different communities, are typically in rural underserved areas that don't have high intensity brain health awareness. And to your point, Alzheimer's disease is one of the most disabling disease that seems to be rather rampant right now. There was a study that came out in the Journal of the AMA about a month ago that talked about as many as 25% of elderly patients who are having memory impairment and cognitive disabilities, bordering on Alzheimer's. 25% don't really have any place to go for therapy, for care, for people to check in on them. And so the only time they become aware or made aware of this in the system is when some serious accident or event occurs. So if we can get folks more aware of Alzheimer's awareness and treatment and recognition and diagnosis ahead of time, we can expand our coverage to multiple touch points across the entire state.
What a blessing.
Dr. Harmon, let me ask you a question about what it means to be a physician, and that's changed a little bit over your career. You've got the employed situation where the majority of physicians in the state of South Carolina are employed by a hospital or maybe an insurance company or somebody who's not a doctor. What do you tell young people, or maybe not so young people, who are considering medical school and taking on this calling is more than a profession? What do you tell them about what it means to be a physician in today's world? Because it's changed a lot. I mean, the base, purpose is still there, but technology and business has changed it. What's your advice for them?
Well, you've nailed it. The statistics all show, and data run a lot of our conversations, and data helps us make decisions, not only now for in the future and planning. The data shows that more than half of our new physician graduates, at least the physician graduates, are employed. They're no longer what traditionally would be called private practice. But that's not always a bad thing. That's a career choice, but it may have an economy of scale and efficiency. And I can't judge what's best for each individual medical school graduates, but I'd like for all of them to consider their why they went into medicine to start with. What drove them to a healthcare decision typically is not an economic decision, although there's an attraction to it. You see, many of us as physicians tend to have, with the basis of our education, we have a higher economic reward sometimes, and you can't deny that. But I would argue that a lot of folks that have exceptional talent get that. The first thing I would tell you is that physicians and people who want to be physicians typically have innate gifts. They're born with the intellect, the decision capabilities to understand all the medical information that makes us a doctor. They have demonstrated exceptional ability to manage, to handle crisis, to have decision making. So I consider that a gift. And so I tell young people, if you choose to enter into medicine or any healthcare, that's one of the highest callings you could ever hope for. But most of them, and almost every one of them, will think about that they're taking this gift and serving their fellow humans. They really are. And so I tell them, wherever they go into, whatever special they choose, to think about paying back and not only practicing medicine, but educating others, including their patients and their communities, but the future of healthcare providers also. So most of them enjoy teaching. They enjoy being a teacher, and they'll, whatever employment operation, practice, private practice, education, becoming a teacher, or becoming a researcher, or an administrative health leader, all of those are options that are on the table, just so they feel that they're professionally satisfied and they actually serve what they wrote down on their admissions application. I want to serve humanity and I want to give back. That should be their North Star.
Well said.
And we can tell it's your North Star, Dr. Harmon. Thank you for taking on this new service role in the state, and for your past good work, and for your second visit here on Taking the Pulse. On behalf of Matthew and the whole crew, it's been a pleasure having you back. We wish you well and hope there will be a time number 3 in the future. I
would very much look forward to that. You give me energy and enthusiasm too. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. For those of you who joined us today, we hope you enjoyed learning a little bit more about what's in store for the University of South Carolina School of Medicine in Columbia. We look forward to seeing you next time right here on Taking the Pulse, a healthcare and life sciences video podcast.